give it to Chris Brown. Touchdown. Here's Calhoun. The freshman will score. Touchdown. Not even Newman can catch him. And go to Brown again and into the secondary. He breaks clear to the 40. He may go 30, 20 down the sidelines. Touchdown.
He's going to scramble away up to the 20, to the 15, to the 5.
Interception. Moore to the 30. Breaks a tackle. He might score. He dives. Incredible.
Got a great block from Drum. Brown dives, scores. Buffaloes.
Here he is again. Broke a tackle. Cut back. One man to beat. Here goes Calhoun down the sideline.
Touchdown, Buffaloes. And that will do it. Colorado, Big XII North champs.
The 2002 Colorado Buffaloes built a season of success around teamwork, perseverance, and a commitment to the traditions added with every game played and every jersey worn. At 9-5, the Buffs defended their crown as Big XII North champs, registering lasting moments in a season full of memories. Chris Brown leading the nation with a streak of 8 100-yard games. The excitement brought to the table by new faces in J.J. Billingsley, Brian Calhoun, and Jeremy Bloom. Defense winning games: Donald Strickland, Medford Moore, Corey Masoni. The leadership exhibited by captains Wayne Lucier, Justin Bates, and Tyler Brayton. Back-to-back victories over rival Nebraska. And dedicating the season to coach, mentor, and friend Tom McMahon, Coach Mac. The Buffs opened the season against in-state rival Colorado State. Playing CSU at Invesco Field at Mile High has become a tradition on its own, and the Rams, still smarting from the 41-14 loss the Buffs put on them in 2001, put in a solid first half. Keying in on turnovers and field position, Cecil Sapp scored twice, and Colorado State led 13-0 at halftime. CU came out firing to start the third quarter, 4 first downs on 4 consecutive plays. Behind catches by Derek McCoy and a run by Chris Brown got the second half rolling. The best drive of the day stalled when the referees ruled a fumble deep in the red zone, but CU recovered on the ensuing drive with Phil Jackson going over the top and intercepting Bradley Van Pelt, saving a touchdown.
Van Pelt over the middle looking for Kapari, and it is intercepted. Picked off by Phil Jackson, and Colorado finally gets a turnover.
The defense held the Rams to under 40 yards in the third quarter and kept the score to 13-0. Freshman Jeremy Bloom opened the fourth quarter with his first collegiate punt return and the Buffs' first score of 2002.
Bloom on the 24. Showing that speed.
Got a wall.
Huber gets blocked. Bloom goes by for the touchdown. What a debut for Bloom.
Colorado's next possession led to its second score. John Donahoe hauled in a pass across the middle and picked up yardage down the sideline, and then Bobby Purify took a handoff around the right side down to the 2 to set up the touchdown. CU had its first and only lead of the game, 14-13. The Rams just seemed to be one step ahead the entire game and answered on their next possession on a Van Pelt run that ended with an unflagged, unsportsmanlike taunt in the end zone. Regardless, CU still trailed by 5. And despite converting on fourth down twice on their final drive, that's the way it ended. 19-14, the Buffs falling to the Rams. Folsom Field welcomed home their Buffs on September 7th against San Diego State and welcomed back the kind of football CU is accustomed to playing. Chris Brown led their first possession by carrying the ball 5 times, running over Aztec defenders to the tune of 46 yards, and setting up a 22-yard reception by Bo Williams to give CU the early lead.
Wide open. Derek McCoy. Will he go the distance? Yes. Touchdown, Colorado.
Derek McCoy again put the Buffs up by a touchdown with a 75-yard catch and streak down the sideline. CU led 14-7. San Diego State answered with its own excitement on a long run to tie the score at 14. Senior Mark Mariscal, the nation's leading punter in 2002, boomed a career-best 66-yard bomb 2 drives later. setting up freshman Akarika Don's highlight moment of the season.
Oh, he brings it out. Unbelievable. Oh, lost it. Now it's going to be a touchdown for Colorado.
With the score 21-14, the Buffs hit the ground running in the second half. Senior quarterback Robert Hodge came in to lead the offense, picking up where he left off before transferring to CU from junior college last season. Chris Brown continued to run hard, and Bobby Purify added yards around the Aztec defense, including a long run with less than 4 minutes remaining in the third quarter to set up a 1-yard push from Brown.
Simmons breaks a tackle, comes across the 40-yard line, and that is where he is hit. The hit made by Donald Strickland. He stopped Simmons in his tracks, lifted him up in the air, and threw him down. And if it was a wrestling match, he would have had a pin.
The defense on the Buffs side of the ball was fierce. True freshman J.J. Billingsley made a name for himself in his first game at Folsom by breaking the record for tackles by a freshman when he chalked up 15. Quite a debut for the Colorado recruit. Junior defensive back Clyde Sorrell, not to be outdone, registered 12 tackles of his own, including a sack and a tackle for loss. The rest of the Colorado D chipped in as well, pounding San Diego State at the line of scrimmage. The offensive line, who had been opening huge holes the entire afternoon, put the game well out of reach in the fourth quarter, blowing back the Aztecs and giving Chris Brown the lane he needed.
Here's the handoff again, and right up the middle, Brown. This one's going to go 15, 10, 5, a touchdown for Chris Brown.
Brown finished the day with 185 yards and 2 touchdowns. Playing their second home game in as many weeks, the Buffaloes faced their biggest test of the season in the USC Trojans. Bo Williams was able to keep a handle early in the contest, but it turned out to be one of those games where the Buffs just didn't have an answer for the Trojans and eventual Heisman Trophy winner Carson Palmer. Case in point, USC's first score, a 4th and 8 pass that broke free for a 32-yard touchdown. Sean Tufts and the Colorado defense held their ground for much of the first half, filling holes and making tackles they needed to keep their heads above water, waiting for some points of their own, or at least some momentum. J.J. Billingsley may have made the play to get CU back in the game when he picked off Palmer in the second quarter, but a flag for a late hit on the quarterback nullified the turnover, and USC rallied for its third score. Tyler Brayton blocked the last-minute field goal attempt to keep the score 20-0 Trojans heading into halftime. CU came out of the locker room at halftime still believing they were in this game. Tufts caused an early fumble that the Trojans recovered, but the turnover the Buffs needed was not too far away.
Snap, and Malone, who's Huntwell has it blocked. Ball is going to come down around the 23-yard line. The man who made the block, I think at Evans Judge.
Chris Brown followed fullback Brandon Drum to the goal line, but the offense had to settle for a field goal try that went wide left. Again, the Colorado D held, putting the pressure on Palmer and keeping him out of the end zone. Mark Mariscal had a record day as he averaged 57.5 yards on 8 punts, including a school single-game record of 7 punts of 50 yards or longer, and providing CU's next opportunity to get back in the game.
Snap, and the punt. Fair catch is called for by Kelly. Hits him in the back, and Colorado's got the ball. Sean Tufts is on it at the 18-yard line.
CU finally got on the scoreboard with kicker Patrick Brome putting through a 43-yard field goal. The Trojans led 20-3 and were successfully shut out in the third quarter. In the fourth quarter, the wheels fell off the wagon, and the Buffs headed to the showers, having lost one of the worst games in school history. It was make or break time for a team now out of the polls with a 1-2 record. Going to California and facing yet another West Coast team could have folded the 2002 season. But as it turns out, traveling to the Rose Bowl was just what the Buffs needed. As they took the field against the UCLA Bruins, Colorado knew what it had to do, and now was the time to do it. The first quarter was back and forth, a scoreless battle in an attempt to determine who was going to be the big dog on this day.
Drops back, screen pass complete, near side at the 45-50, 45-40, 35-30, down the near sideline.
Medford Moore stepped up in the early going to put the pressure on UCLA tailback Akil Harris. And defensive end Gabe Nineheist did the same to quarterback Corey Paz. But on a reverse, the Bruins scored first. Then, the Chris Brown show began.
Hand off to the tailback. That's Chris Brown, the big man at the 25-30, 35-40, down the far sideline, 45-50.
The 38-yard run off the left side ignited the entire Buffs team. Derek McCoy took off on a reverse of his own, kept it, and raced into the end zone. But a penalty brought the ball back to the 19-yard line, where Brown went left, reversed, and motored back to the opposite hash mark and in for the tying score.
Running right, he'll go to the end zone untouched. Touchdown, Colorado.
Back to Buffalo's football.
Hodge, handoff, that's to Brown. Runs it straight up the middle. Buffaloes are running the football and wearing the Bruin defense down.
Chris Brown was taking over the game with his power running, and complementing it nicely was the finesse of Robert Hodge and Bobby Purify, who continued to connect on big yardage plays down the sidelines. Knotted at sevens, Patrick Brome found his mark and put the Buffs up for good with a 29-yard field goal just before halftime. Hodge led his team onto the field in the third quarter with the same focus they had found in the first half. He hooked up with Bo Williams on a tightrope sideline play, setting up Brome's second field goal, this time from 39 yards to put CU up by 6. The real backbreaker for the Bruins was a series of 3 plays that followed. Senior Tyler Brayton owned the UCLA line and threw Paz to the ground for Colorado's second sack of the day. Paz then stepped into the pocket and was intercepted by linebacker Corey Masoni, patrolling the middle, giving the Buffs the turnover they needed. Robert Hodge to wide receiver Barry Kunkel, back to Hodge. The throwback went for 29 yards. The Buffs could do no wrong.
Ball is given to Chris Brown. Touchdown. Right up the middle. They just blew the Bruins right off the line of scrimmage.
A 2-point conversion to Derek McCoy made the score 21-7. Corey Paz and the Bruins were done. Marcus Harris led the defense through the rest of the game, dropping the quarterback time and time again. The Colorado secondary kept the UCLA receivers apart from the ball for almost the entire second half and shutting down their running game to the tune of only 62 total yards. Brown added a third touchdown from 8 yards out in the fourth quarter.
Walks in.
A Colorado offense that had struggled a week earlier rallied around one another to find yards and points in the Rose Bowl. Brown finished with 188 yards and 3 scores. Purify racked up 128 all-purpose yards with the help of a more comfortable Robert Hodge. Brome kicked down 3 field goals, and the Buffs left the field with a 31-17 victory. More importantly, they were able to start a new streak of singing the fight song. The October 5th game against the highly ranked Kansas State Wildcats opened up the Buffs' Big 12 title defense and was one of the most exciting games of the season. CU opened the scoring with Hodge going deep to Derek McCoy for a 41-yard bomb to the KSU 1, setting up Chris Brown's push across the goal line. The Colorado defense came to play this game. They stuffed quarterback L. Roberson on the Wildcats' first possession and got the ball back in Hodge's hands, where he struck again on the first play from scrimmage.
Hodge on first down is going to put it up, and he's going to try to go deep. Got a man in a foot race. Here's Calhoun. The freshman will score. Touchdown. Not even Newman can catch him. 71 yards. Oh, my, what a game plan.
The 71-yard reception by Calhoun put the Buffs up 14-0 and made Folsom field erupt. The sellout crowd of more than 52,000 was going to be treated to one heck of a battle. K-State tied the game early in the second quarter, with Roberson keeping on the option play and rumbling 71 yards for the score. Big plays for big yardage. That could have easily been the headline for the game in the paper the next day.
All right, Drum, this is a big third down play now as far as field position is concerned in this game. Buffaloes have got it. Open field in a foot race. Chris Brown back on the field. Touchdown. Play fake. Hodge going to look for him. Going to go to Bloom. Bloom breaks free. He's got it. Foot race. Here comes Jeremy Bloom. Headed for the end zone. They won't get him. Touchdown.
Brown and Bloom answered with 2 huge scores to end the half and 2 of the longest plays in CU history. Behind Brandon Drum once again, Brown sprinted 85 yards, tying him for the 4th longest run by a Buff. And Hodge to Bloom going 94 yards not only put Colorado up 28-14 at half, it was also the longest pass play ever from scrimmage. Interception by Drew Walrus stifled one Wildcat drive, while a trick play from Sam Wilder, a defensive end posing as a tight end, kept the CU drive alive in the third quarter. A Hodge throwback to Jesse Wallace, an actual tight end, for a 1-yard score put the game even farther out of reach for the Wildcats. CU led 35-14. But K-State just wouldn't go away and provided the fireworks that made this such an exciting game. Tailback Darren Sproles muscled through for 2 scores, won an 80-yard scramble, and brought the Cats within a touchdown of tying the game. With all the drama of such a big game, it got even better. After a turnover, the Cats had driven the ball down to the Colorado 4-yard line. On 4th and 2, with the game on the line, Roberson and the option went left.
Here comes the option wide. There's the pitch. In a foot race, won't get the first down.
Strickland comes up with a huge one.
Donald Strickland's crushing hit knocked Sproles for a loss and gave the ball back to CU on downs, thus preserving the lead. Despite giving up 100 yards rushing to both Roberson and Sproles, the Colorado passing game outgained the Cats by more than 200 yards, and Chris Brown added 167 on the ground. The Buffs walked off the field with a 35-31 win in their hardest-fought victory yet this season. Traveling to Lawrence, Kansas gave the Buffs offense even more confidence. Ready for the Jayhawks, Robert Hodge came out firing. After throwing 3 touchdowns against Kansas State, he marched down the field on the opening drive against KU and found DJ Hackett in the corner of the end zone to put CU on top 7-0. On his way to a near-record day, Chris Brown took the handoff on the next drive and went 78 yards for the score. Brown entered the game as the Big 12's leading rusher and left at the top of the nation, averaging almost 165 yards a game. His dominance was very evident against the overmatched Jayhawks.
They go to Brown again and into the secondary. He breaks clear to the 40. He may go 30, 20, down the sidelines. Touchdown.
The Buffalo defense brought home some highlights of its own, hounding the KU quarterback and hitting whomever had the ball. When the Jayhawks dared to throw the ball, CU was right there too.
Whittemore reading the blitz, back to throw it. Now he's in trouble. He throws. Oh, it's intercepted. Look out. This is going to go the other way, and it may go all the way. Yep, it is going to be a touchdown return of about 90 yards by Donald Strickland.
Behind Brown and Bobby Purify, the Buffs offense was having its way with Kansas. But the Jayhawk offense showed it had a little swagger itself, keeping pace with CU for most of the first half. Bill Whitmore, voted the Offensive Newcomer of the Year on the Big 12 Conference, found Marcellus Jones twice and kept the score 36-22 going into the locker room. But Brown and company were just too much, too often. Busting for long run after long run, the Jayhawks had to key on the run but were then burned by the pass. Hodge found Derek McCoy, who tiptoed to the back of the end zone for their second touchdown of the day.
Hand the ball to the fullback, and he breaks a tackle at the 15, down to the 10, and he'll run it in for the score. That's Brandon Drum.
Drum iced the game with a 21-yard scramble, and CU won 53-29. The Buffs rushed for 427 yards, their most since netting 502 and a win over Missouri in 1991. And despite allowing the Jayhawks 450 yards of total offense, the CU defense recorded a season-high 13 tackles for loss. Tyler Brayton led the way with 10 tackles, all solo, with 3 for losses. Chris Brown, now the nation's leading rusher, turned in the third-best rushing performance ever by a Colorado back with 309 yards and 2 touchdowns. CU was back in the poll at number 23 in the nation. Playing the Baylor Bears at home gave fans a chance to see firsthand how dominant the CU offense could be. Rod Snead took the opening kickoff for long yardage, and Brown, just 63 seconds into the game, blew open for a 55-yard score to put the game out of reach. He would finish the day with 187 yards of total offense and 3 scores. Colorado's defense was given the chance to make plays against Baylor as well.
And that's going to be a screen. He throws it out there up. It's going to be a second throw. And that's up for grabs. Intercepted.
CU swarmed to the Baylor option, stopping it at the line of scrimmage time and time again, giving the ball back to Hodge in the offense.
Here comes pressure. Hodge is going to get outside and pass it downfield. It's caught down out of bounds at the 9-yard line by tight end Jesse Wallace. Second down, 3.5. Here's the give. Touchdown Brown heading toward the end zone. He's in.
With the defense continuing to force 3 and outs, the game began to get farther and farther out of hand. Strickland in the secondary played both stingy pass defense and solid run stopping. Captain Tyler Brayton was yet again a force at the line of scrimmage and in the backfield. And Robert Hodge, who'd thrown 3 touchdowns in each of the previous 2 games, showed he could run the ball as well.
Here's the fake, and Hodge has to scramble. He's going to scramble away to the 20, to the 15, to the 5. Hodge runs back to the middle and scores a touchdown.
Going into halftime, the score was 35-0, and that's all this game would need. The second half saw the defense continue to shut down the Bears, especially in the secondary, with Clyde Sorrell dishing out open field hits and forcing turnovers. Medford Moore also picked up an interception deep in Colorado territory. The Colorado starting defense allowed just 108 yards of total offense to the Bears through 3 quarters and just 72 rushing yardage overall. Hodge hit 10 different receivers, spreading the wealth to the younger players, some who were seeing action for the first time this season. Brown topped the 100-yard mark once again, making him the fastest player in history to surpass 1,000 yards rushing in one season.
And he's going to throw it to the end zone and is knocked down. Colorado's got the shutout.
The game ended at 35-0. It was CU's first shutout since beating the same Baylor team 37-0 in 1999, a span of 32 games. Bringing Texas Tech into Folsom Field had all the makings of a scoring shootout. The punishing running attack of CU versus the arm of Cliff Kingsbury. The Buffs' season had turned around and they were now looking forward to defending their Big 12 title. The Red Raiders would be a good test for that. Roderick Sneed provided an early spark with another long kickoff return that set up a Pat Brome field goal to tie the game at 3 early on.
3rd and 25 from the 40. This one deflected, intercepted at the 40, at the 30. Masoni inside the 10 and down to the 4-yard line. Brown sees the hole, dives, he scores.
Corey Masoni's long interception return and the Browns score put CU up 10-3. Dueling passing attacks kept the game close through the first half. Kingsbury worked his team downfield for a tying score, then went ahead 13-10 with a 42-yard field goal midway through the second quarter. Hodge hooked up with Bo Williams in the flat, found Drum out of the backfield, who hopped around Tech defenders for extra yardage, and senior John Donahoe across the middle. Moving themselves into position for a tying field goal, Hodge hit Derek McCoy, who made something out of nothing.
McCoy, he dives, he scores! Oh my! Buffs get the TD!
Rod Sneed took the third quarter kickoff back 64 yards, following blockers across midfield, and finally going down at the Tech 36-yard line. That drive stalled with a blocked field goal, but the Buffs' next chance to return the ball proved to be a whole lot more exciting.
Bloom from the 11. Makes one-man miss. Bloom makes another miss. 40, Bloom 45, 50. Wow, what a performer this kid is.
DJ Hackett pulled in a tough reception to keep that drive alive long enough for Hodge to drop a screen pass to Bobby Purify, who ran around and through the Red Raider defense, showing his versatility to the tune of a 36-yard score and a 23-13 lead. That score seemed to bolster the Buffs' confidence. Hands in the air, and the Colorado defense went back to work on Kingsbury's attempt at a comeback. It lasted only 2 minutes.
Interception. Moore to the 30. Breaks a tackle. He might score. Moore bulling his way. He does. Incredible.
Medford Moore's interception for a touchdown was the backbreaker for the Red Raiders. They could do nothing now to stop the defensive pressure put on by the Buffs' line and secondary. Clyde Sorrell stopped up the middle on Tech's next possession, setting up a scrambling attempt downfield that Moore again intercepted. But the clincher and the defining moment for this tremendous victory came at the hands of Tyler Brayton.
Ball knocked loose. It's live. Colorado picks it up. Touchdown Buffaloes. Brayton with a score.
The Colorado D was stifling, holding Texas Tech to 125 yards below its season average and a paltry 4 yards per pass completion, and more importantly, forcing the Red Raiders into 4 turnovers. Brown ran for 149 yards on 26 carries, his 5th consecutive 100-yard game. The Buffs came away with a 37-13 victory, which took them to 6-2 on the season and now ranked number 13. Riding a 5-game win streak, CU went up against its biggest rival of the season, the number 2 Oklahoma Sooners, on a rainy and miserable day in Norman. The Colorado offense continued to be solid against the highly touted Sooner defense. Chris Brown continued his streak of 100-yard gains despite multiple predictions to the contrary, putting up 103 on the Sooners, the first time a back had broken the century mark versus Oklahoma in more than 3 years. It was turnovers that cost the Buffs the game. CU virtually handed Oklahoma the game with 4 mistakes in the first half, leading to 17 Sooner points and a commanding 20-3 Oklahoma lead going into the break. Marcus Harris answered with an interception of his own deep in OU territory, and Medford Moore continued to be strong in the secondary to help keep the game close. The second half was a different story. CU came out of the locker room hitting hard and swarming to the football. Oklahoma tailback Quentin Griffin and the Sooners were held to only a single touchdown the remainder of the game, coming off another untimely turnover. Purifying the offense put up respectable numbers on the ground and in the air. Bobby cut and broke tackles for the Buffs' first touchdown of the game, and Derek McCoy hauled in a 2-point conversion from Hodge to bring the score within striking distance for the Buffs. But despite outgaining OU on offense by close to 75 yards and defensively shutting the Sooners down with 29 Oklahoma plays going for 0 or negative yardage, the Buffs could get no closer than 27-11, and Colorado fell to 6-3 on the season. A better day of weather and a better day of football greeted CU as they traveled to Columbia, Missouri to face the Tigers.
Got a man, McCoy at the 20. McCoy will score. Buffalo's on the board. Brown, 45, follows his blocker and now turns it on. 30, Brown, and tripped up inside the 15-yard line.
That long run by Chris Brown set up his first score of the day, a 10-yard bounce around the left side, and put CU ahead 17-7. Aaron Killian provided the heavy hitting on special teams to keep the Tigers deep in their own territory, and the rest of the Buffs defense kept Mizzou quarterback Brad Smith in check. Heading into halftime, CU had a seemingly commanding 20-7 lead. Everyone was getting the opportunity to contribute. Brandon Drum was catching the ball. Rod Sneed was filling at the line of scrimmage. Bloom took a reverse around the right side for good yardage. The Buffs' offense was clicking. Brown and Purify also proved why they might be one of the best backfields in the Big 12. No matter who touched the ball in the game, good things seemed to happen. Bobby was able to dance through the Tiger defense almost at will at times, through the middle of their linebackers or around the corner and down the sidelines. Chris Brown continued to be about power, knocking guys down and running by them. CU opened the second half with the same domination.
And now Hodge going deep, got a man, it's McCoy, and McCoy is inside the 15.
Hodge would score on a dive around the right side, and CU was comfortably ahead 27-7. Lost in the highlights and the big defensive stops was a Mizzou team who began slowly eating away at the Buffs' lead. When an interception by Taurus Ferguson went 57 yards for a Mizzou touchdown, Colorado's lead was all of a sudden only 27-21. They would eventually take the lead by 1 behind the gritty play of Smith, who took shot after shot from the CU defense. Colorado mounted its own drive, a monster drive, lasting 16 plays and eating up 85 yards.
Brown again. Got a great block from Drum. Brown dives, scores, Buffaloes.
Hodge found tight end Quinn Sipnewski on the 2-point conversion to put CU ahead by a score. But when Missouri was able to answer, it sent the game into overtime. Colorado's first ever overtime game was back in 1999 against these same Missouri Tigers, when Mike Machete hooked up with Marcus Stiggers in the back of the end zone for the winning touchdown to beat the Tigers in Folsom Field. Today's outcome would be no different. Old school, smash-mouth football. The Buffs ran the ball their entire first drive of overtime. 6 plays. Brown carried the ball consistently as he had all day, not around the Tiger D, but right through him. His big run was a 12-yard pounding with the big push from fullback Brandon Drum down to the 4. Brown would score 2 plays later to put the Buffs ahead. Mizzou could do no better. Defensive end Marcus Harris sacked Smith on their first play for a 6-yard loss. Facing 3rd and 10, Smith found Darius Outlaw for the first down.
Outlaw fumbled the football. Was he down? Colorado's recovered. That's the ball game.
J.J. Billingsley pounded the ball away from Outlaw, and Corey Masoni recovered, giving CU the win in overtime 42-35. In the victory, Colorado had a 200-yard rusher, another 100-yard rusher, and a 100-yard receiver, a first in school history, as Brown, Purify, and McCoy all had big days. Senior Day, the last home game for more than 20 Colorado seniors. And a big game at that against the Iowa State Cyclones. Winning would clinch the Big 12 North title at home under the lights. The Buffs were ready. Bloom set the attitude early by hauling in a pass and declaring his first down. It's that kind of inspired play that would win the game for Colorado. Hodges' 8-yard pass to DJ Hackett early in the second quarter put the Buffs up 10-7, and then back and forth the battle had started. ISU quarterback Seneca Wallace was an early season Heisman front-runner, but the Buffs' defensive line hounded him all evening, stripping the ball when he scrambled and protecting the goal line when he elected to throw.
Wallace intercepted. Jackson brought it out.
Big plays by Jeremy Bloom and big hits by the likes of freshman Akarika Don kept the rowdy Folsom Field crowd in the game. But it was the hands of Hackett that kept the score close.
2nd and 1, officially 9 on that carry. That means go deep. What a grab! And it is complete at the 5-yard line. DJ Hackett.
Hackett's sensational 51-yard catch from Hodge set up Brown, who scored on a 5-yard run late in the second to put Colorado ahead 17-14 heading into the half. Following Ralphie out for the second half proved to be a tough time for Brown as he left the game with a bruised sternum after gaining 127 yards on the ground. The defense stepped up, chasing Wallace around the field and sticking his receivers when they dare try to catch the ball. In a game where the lead changed 6 times, every big play counted.
A fumble here. Colorado's got it. The Buffaloes going to return it for a score, and it's Medford Moore. No one will catch him.
Medford Moore's 71-yard fumble return and a Hodge to McCoy touchdown early in the fourth set up a quarter of scoring that would see the two teams combine for 28 points. Wallace led the Cyclones on a late drive to make things interesting. They went 70 yards on 5 plays in only 72 seconds and scored on a quarterback keeper to bring Iowa State within a touchdown. But this would become Bobby Purify's game. With Brown out, Purify stepped up and picked up his team.
And Purify, watch out, Purify 45-50, Purify on the sideline and goes to inside the 30-yard line.
Purify finished the game with 225 all-purpose yards, but iced the contest, carrying the ball on every play of a 6-play, 80-yard drive and scoring the security TD.
Touchdown, Buffaloes, and that will do it. Purify, and they celebrate in the end zone. Colorado, Big 12 North champs. The posts will fall.
The goalpost fell for the second time in as many season finales for the Buffs as they clinched the Big 12 North title again and left Folsom Field as champions. But no season, championship or not, is complete without the Nebraska rivalry game. The Buffs traveled to Lincoln knowing they would be playing in the Big 12 championship game a week later, regardless of the outcome. But that meant little when they walked into Memorial Stadium and into a sea of red. Purify started the game at tailback and carried the ball strong early on. The Colorado D stacked against the Huskers' running attack, and Masoni and the linebackers followed suit, forcing Nebraska quarterback Jamal Lord to have to look deep, something he's not comfortable with. Phil Jackson registered his 3rd red zone interception of the season and set up CU's first score of the game.
And Hodge going for McCoy, got in, touchdown Colorado.
While Hodge and the offense scrambled around Nebraska territory looking for yardage, the Colorado defense was putting all kinds of pressure on Jamal Lord and running back Darren Diedrich. 2 plays that proved to be the difference in the first half. 2 plays, an 80-yard bomb from Lord to Matt Harrion tied the game, and a field goal by walk-on kicker Dale Endorf, the first of his career, put the Huskers up 10-7 at halftime. But just as Purify had stepped up to control the game against Iowa State, it was freshman Brian Calhoun's turn when Bobby went down with an ankle injury. Calhoun sparked an 80-yard touchdown drive by contributing 33 yards on the ground, including 2 impressive runs behind his offensive line and setting up a guest appearance by Purify, who walked in from the 2-yard line. In the third quarter, the Buffs D simply shut down the Huskers. Nebraska was held to just 7 yards on 10 plays, half of which went for negative yardage. Included in that stat was one Nebraska drive that went 3 and out, with all 3 plays losing yards and the Colorado linebackers all over Jamal Lord. More time for Calhoun to carry the ball.
Here he is again. Broke a tackle. Cut back. One man to beat. Here goes Calhoun down the sideline.
Brandon Drum scored from 1 yard out and celebrated across the field with fellow fullback Lawrence Vickers as the Buffs were now in the lead 21-13 and in command of the game. Just as he's done all year, Jeremy Bloom provided some special teams excitement down the sidelines in the fourth quarter, adding to the Buffs' domination on all sides of the ball. J.J. Billingsley wanted his own Nebraska highlight moment, and he got it. And linebacker Sean Tufts, returning from a rash of injury-plagued games, busted through to stifle any late Husker threats.
Horn dropped the ball. Colorado's got it. Here goes Drum. Touchdown. And it's over.
Winning in Lincoln might have been the highlight of the 2002 season. It marked the first time in a decade Colorado had beaten Nebraska in back-to-back years, following the 62-36 pummeling of the Huskers in 2001. You'd have to go back to 1990 to see the last time the Buffs beat the Huskers in Lincoln. But in 2002, CU was able to run to the sidelines, battered and exhausted from a tough regular season, emotionally drained from beating unarguably their biggest rival, and sing the fight song with the black and gold faithful that made the trip, all in the shadow of the scoreboard in the background reading Colorado 28, Nebraska 13. CU rushed for 253 yards on the day behind 137 yards from Calhoun and 2 touchdowns from Drum. They would need that same kind of production in their next game, a rematch with Oklahoma, this time with the Big 12 championship on the line and a chance to defend their title. Houston, Texas welcomed the Buffs on the first weekend of December into the big game atmosphere of Reliance Stadium. It looked good for CU out of the gate as freshman running back sensation Brian Calhoun scooted around the right side for a 37-yard gain on the first play of the game. The Buffs drove to the Sooner 23-yard line before the drive stalled, and it ended without points when Pat Brohm's 41-yard field goal sailed wide right. Oklahoma answered with a 13-play, 77-yard drive with quarterback Nate Heibel throwing a touchdown pass to Trent Smith on a 3rd and goal from the CU 3. The following Sooner drive was marred by a questionable incomplete lateral that Marcus Harris recovered in OU territory, but it was ruled an incomplete pass, and Oklahoma made it 13-0 after a 21-yard touchdown pass from Heibel to Mark Clayton 5 minutes in the second quarter. It culminated a 12-play, 80-yard drive, but Phil Jackson snuck around to block Oklahoma's extra point attempt. 2 series later, CU used runs of 25 and 23 yards by Calhoun to work to the Oklahoma 14, but again was stopped by the buckling down Sooner defense. Brohm's 32-yard field goal matched his first in missing wide right, and the half would end with Oklahoma up by 13. Colorado got back into the game and had momentum on its side for the first half of the third quarter. The defense came out of the locker room and held the Sooners to 3 and out on its first series. Blake Ferguson hit a 51-yard punt, fielded by Jeremy Bloom at the Buff 20. The freshman raced up the gut and sprinted 80 yards for the score, his second punt return for touchdown of the year, cutting the deficit to 13-7. The Buffs held the Sooners again, and on their next possession, Brandon Drum's 44-yard run on a 3rd and 2 set CU up in the red zone. But once again, the drive sputtered, and Brohm's 33-yard field goal just missed wide right. The Buffs were a bit deflated at that point, and OU seized the opportunity, driving 80 yards in 11 plays, with Griffin scoring from 36 yards out. The Sooners missed the deuce and took a 19-7 lead into the fourth quarter. Any hopes of a comeback were all but dashed when Oklahoma drove from its 5 to the CU 5 over the course of a 16-play, 7+ minute drive. Though CU kept OU out of the end zone, DiCarlo made a 28-yard field goal to extend the Sooner lead to 22-7. Oklahoma would go on to win 29-7. Calhoun finished with 122 yards, a sterling effort since CU was without the services of Doak Walker finalist Chris Brown and sidekick Bobby Purify, who played only a few snaps in special third down situations. At 9-4, the Buffs were headed to the Alamo Bowl in San Antonio to take on the Wisconsin Badgers. It was CU's second trip to Texas in consecutive games, and hopefully this game would fare better for the Big 12 North champs. The game started off solid on defense. Senior cornerback Donald Strickland picked off Wisconsin quarterback Brooks Bollinger and raced for an Alamo Bowl record 91-yard touchdown early in the first quarter. to set the tempo for the Buffs. It would open the door to a flurry of scoring in this game. Wisconsin ran the ball as expected, and CU was there to meet their ground attack. But turnovers plagued the Colorado offense yet again, and a Robert Hodge interception late in the first half led to the Badgers tying the game at 7. The Colorado defense put a lot of pressure on Bollinger early, keeping him in the pocket and not giving him a chance to throw. But the opportunities for the Badgers senior to make plays just kept coming with CU turnovers. A Hodge pass bounced off receiver Ron Monte and was intercepted, and Bollinger found his own receiver in the back of the end zone to knot the game at 14. Just before halftime saw yet another turnover turn into 6 points for the Badgers. CU went into the locker room down by a score. Colorado came out strong in the second half. A muff punt by Wisconsin gave Brown the chance to find the end zone for the first time in this game. He pounded off tackle for 2 big gains on the drive and scored behind key blocks in the offensive line. Running back Anthony Davis fumbled on the Badgers' next drive, and Zach Colvin, who came in to replace Hodge at quarterback, hit Hackett over the defending cornerback for DJ's second touchdown of the game. Fired up now with the lead, the Buffs took their aggressive play into the fourth quarter and recovered a Bollinger fumble to stop the Badgers' drive. With key injuries on the Colorado offensive line to Wayne Lucier and Ryan Gray, CU had to rely on its defense and hold on for the win. On a 4th and 19 play, Bollinger was able to get it done, finding his receiver over the middle for the first. CU was able to force the Badgers into another 4th down attempt, and again Bollinger came through, hitting his receiver over the top to the 1. The Wisconsin quarterback scored the tying touchdown on the next play. In overtime, the Buffs couldn't generate any yardage and missed a 45-yard field goal to take the lead. And though Colorado's defense held the Badgers to almost nothing on its possession, Wisconsin was able to convert on its own 3-point attempt, and CU lost 31-28. 2002 was a season chock full of highlights, and though it ended with the Buffs dropping their final 2 games, the accomplishments of the year, repeating as Big XII North champions, winning in Lincoln, cheering Calhoun, Bloom, Purified, Billingsley, these are the things that will be remembered, along with the faces of Lucier, Bates, Walrus, Masoni, Strickland, and Sneed, and the rest of the class of 2002.